Proyecto Grado Cero. Nos encontramos aquí en la Ciudad de México. Está con nosotros el profesor John Harris de Inglaterra. Y pues vamos a hablar de diversos temas de bioéticas. Él es una persona que se ha dedicado mucho tiempo a esos temas. La entrevista va a ser en inglés, así es que pues preparémonos para escuchar al profesor. Professor Harris, welcome.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Okay, we have a few questions for you, and the first one is what we have to, how can we understand what is the meaning of bioethics?
Well, many people have very different ideas about what bioethics is, but to me, bioethics is an academic field of study which is concerned with all of the moral, the ethical issues that arise from the biosciences. So everything from medicine to biology to stem cell science, neurology and so on. So it's anything that has an ethical or a policy dimension within that field.
Okay, we know that it's hard to define what are the morality obligated and what kind of moral theory is near to approach bioethics, or a Kantian theory or an utilitarian theory?
Well, I don't start from the perspective of theory. I think that is a mistake. I think Aristotle once said that you can only use the degree of accuracy, of exactness, of which a particular discipline admits. So once I know the problem, I will think about what sort of tools are necessary to address it. But I don't start from a particular philosophical, theoretical basis.
And what places have rationality or emotions in your theory? You work with that elements?
Well, yes. Let's start a bit further back. I think to act morally, to act well, to do good or to try to do good, is to try to act for the best, all things considered. So rationality is essential because you have to think very carefully about costs and benefits, about what will happen if you do X, what will happen if you don't do X, and then come to a conclusion about how you can best make the world a better place on the basis of that. So rationality is certainly at the core of it. I don't think that morality is a matter of intuitions or feelings.
Can we avoid the emotions on our moral judgments?
Well, can we avoid the emotions on anything that we do in life? We do have emotional reactions to all sorts of things, but I think if we are interested in the question, what is the right thing to do, then we actually have to try to leave our emotions aside and think about the issue rationally, because classically our emotions are tied to particular prejudices or relationships that we have, and morality is about doing good generally, not about doing good for your family or your lover or your cat. It is about trying to decide what is best for the world and what is best for humanity. And then you have to be general, you have to be unemotional about this.
What difference do you find between the scientist's approach to ethical issues and the philosopher's approach?
I don't think there's a systematic difference that you can locate. Many scientists are very sophisticated philosophically, many philosophers are totally unsophisticated scientifically. But basically, in bioethics, philosophers are concerned with the question what we should do for the best, and scientists are concerned with a quite different range of questions. They're concerned with questions like, how does this work? Why does the organism behave in this way? Which are questions with a very different orientation.
In your book, In Changing Evolution, you defend bioethical interventions.
in order to gain a healthier or better life. How can we settle the limit of the use of biotechnological interventions, or this can be considered unlimited?
That's a very complicated question. First, I should say that these are not bioethical interventions. They are technological interventions with a bioethical dimension. And we can't set it as a limits as a general rule. We have to decide in each case whether the balance of advantage over disadvantage is such that it is safe to go ahead. But I think, broadly speaking, there are no, as it were, no obvious limits. Except, of course, what is safe, what is good. And if we can work those out, then we will know where the limits are. But if you ask me where should we stop, I would say we should not stop as long as we're doing good. There's no point in doing a little good if you can do a lot of good. Little good, good. Lot of good, better. So there are no obvious limits.
And we know you are participating on the World Congress of Bioethics here on Mexico City. What did you experience? What do you think about this event? And what can you tell us about your participation here?
Well, I've been, firstly, this is the World Congress of the International Association of Bioethics, and I was one of the founders of this organization and one of its first directors, so I've had a long history with this organization. We're now on our 12th World Congress. I took part in the first World Congress and in most of the others. But I have to say this is a very, very special congress here in Mexico City. The attendance is good, the audience are interested. It's a very, very good place to have a meeting. This is not my first visit to Mexico City, and I love coming here. And I have an ongoing academic cooperation with a number of Mexican scholars. So it's always a pleasure for me to come back and have the chance to interact with them.
In your experience here in Mexico, how do you think the bioethics is working? Do you think Mexico has good apportations to bioethics, or we are growing, we are like new guys here in these topics?
Well, look, we're all new guys in bioethics. Bioethics is a new field. Bioethics really, whenever the word was first coined, and there's argument about that, but it was probably in the 1920s. But bioethics really has only taken off in my adult lifetime, so in the last 30 or 40 years, and more particularly in the last 20 years. So it's a very new field. We're all new guys on the block, and we're feeling our way through a vast range of theoretical approaches, but also every day there is a new scientific discovery or innovation. Every day there is something new which has moral consequences, and we have always to think freshly about what we're going to do about it. So, you know, in the last few years we've seen huge developments in stem cell science. We've seen the possibility, for example, just in the last year, of creating gametes, that is to say sperm and eggs, in vitro, in the laboratory. And we can now, that is to say science, not we bioethicists. We bioethicists do nothing. We just think. But we can create from one of your skin cells both a sperm and an egg, and through one of your female assistant skin cells both a sperm and an egg. So we are now in a situation where, if we think it's right, we humans can have same-sex mothers and fathers genetically to a new child. So you and a male partner, if you had a male partner, could have a child together which would be 50% yours and 50% your male partners, and your female assistant, who is standing smiling at me now, could do the same. She could create eggs and sperm, and with another woman they could have a child which they would be effectively the genetic mother and father of. Now that's a very new, that's in the last year. We know pretty certainly from a lot of work in mice that this is possible. So the question is, is there anything wrong with somebody actually choosing to do that? Now, that's a very complicated question, and one that I've just written about recently in the last 6 weeks. So this illustrates how bioethics is fast moving because it is driven by science and technology. Scientists come up with possibilities, and then we have to think, what are the advantages or the disadvantages? And the advantages of the technology I've just described are that same-sex couples, of which there are many in the world, are for the first time able to contemplate having their own children together. So on compassionate grounds, seems like a good thing to do. And then the question is, where is the downside, if there is one? And a lot of people are thinking about that.
Where are you working? What topics are you working right now? And what we will see in the future about your work, your investigations? Where are you going to other places to give conferences in a short time?
Well, I've just come from Paris. I came here on Monday. I was in Paris on Saturday, talking at a neuroscience conference about something that I may talk about I haven't decided what I'm giving a plenary lecture this evening. I haven't yet decided what lecture I'm going to give. But what I did in Paris was talk about the possibilities of mind reading from neuroscience, of actually finding ways of, by looking at the mind, seeing what people are thinking and have been doing. And this has big consequences for the criminal law. But also there is another way of doing this, and that is via the internet. And that is probably what I will talk about this evening. 2 weeks before that I was again in Paris, and I was speaking at a very different meeting on stem cell science, and we were looking at these in vitro gametes, eggs and sperm that I've just spoken about. I'm working on a book which I hope to finish in the next month or two, which is going to be called How to Be Good, which is a book about how we might use science to improve people's moral behavior. So that's what's interesting me at the moment, but I'm not a specialist. People ask me what I specialize in, and my answer is everything, because I never know what will be interesting. I never know what will happen tomorrow, what will make me say, I must study that, I must think about what the ethics of that are.
Well, thank you very much for this interview. I don't know if you want to say something to the public. Our public are universitarians. They are interested in all topics, and bioethics is a very interesting one.
Well, I have not great familiarity with the university system in Mexico, but some familiarity. My impression is that you have fantastic universities here. You're very fortunate. You have a very strong academic and intellectual community, and you are very well poised, actually, to capitalize on the very good education and the very good science being done in this country, to drive both your economy and prosperity forward, but also to lead thinking in the sorts of areas that I've been talking about.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and we wish that here in Mexico City you have a nice visit, that the Congress, we have 2 days more of Congress, right? Let's see what's happened these days.
Very interested to see what's happened. Thank you very much.
Okay, pues chicos, muchas gracias por sintonizarnos. Esto ha sido todo. Estuvimos con el profesor John Harris. Muchas gracias y nos vemos hasta la próxima.